Hey.
What's up, guys? It's been a while.
Not that long.
It really does feel to me like it's been a while.
I know.
Well, it's because we do like the daily pods and
I know. Now when we go, well, you know what it is? It's because we haven't done the Saturday show.
We haven't done a Saturday
it feels
show.
longer than normal.
I will say that the one downside to the daily pod is it was so fun that now it's like I almost feel like we're just killing time until the daily pod again. Like it was like such an amazing time that now it's like once or twice a week.
I know. But it was tied to the run.
No, I know.
Yeah. All right.
Well, let's go.
Let's go. We're going to go.
We're gonna start.
Let's
Hello,
start.
Dank Burrito or whatever.
Dank Burrito. It's our guy.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, we're girl or burrito.
But probably a burrito. If I had to
A
guess.
dank one.
Do
Apparently.
you use the term dank very often? Do you know?
No, I'm not even sure if it's appropriate to use.
It is.
Okay.
Do you know what it has to do with? We'll just
I think
before we say-
weed, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes. Why wouldn't it be appropriate to use?
I
It
don't.
just means good weed.
I'm not even
Some dank
sure-
Weed, bud.
I'm not even sure. Like, well, maybe this is an off-air conversation. I'm not even sure what you're allowed to say regarding weed, like on the radio.
Yeah. I think you can say most stuff.
I don't know.
All
I'm
right.
too nervous to say it.
I know you are.
Yeah.
All right. You ready to roll? Here we go.
Yes.
Hey, hello. It is the Go Birds podcast presented by the Bet Park Sportsbook and Casino app. Elliot Shore Parks, James Seltzer with you.
What's up?
How you
What's up,
doing,
buddy? What's up?
Look
What's
at
up?
you.
What's up?
Looking good
What's up?
today.
Thank you. Well, I got up and I worked out.
And
So
it's always a good day when you get up and work out.
You know how Deion Sanders used to be like, look good, play good? I thought of one for me. You ready?
Oh, God.
You ready?
Yes.
Eat good, tweet good. You like that?
Sure.
I'm at my best when I'm eating healthy and working out. Eat good, tweet good. It's a lifestyle.
Cool.
Thank
I
you.
like that. That's good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Eat good, tweet good.
Also, I mean, we have a lot of Eagle stuff to get into today, obviously, but I took a page out of your book and I've been writing down all my random.
Yes.
And I honestly think 4 really good ones.
I'm so excited, buddy. This is great.
Yeah.
See, I've got my list is like out of control now. So it's like I think it's one of the better things I've ever done in terms of like pod wise. Like, look, if I just scroll, like,
It's good.
like,
I mean, that one's really long. Wow.
all this stuff, it just keeps going.
Well, only we were doing daily pod still.
I know. Well, I would run out of stuff again. I really emptied the notepad.
Yeah,
so to
it was
speak.
basically just quotes from Zoe towards the end
Yes,
there,
it is.
which were good. But
which are good. Spoiler alert: no Zoe quotes.
Ah.
So if you're just here for the Zoe quotes, not gonna happen.
unless she has something to say about Matt Patricia, maybe it's better.
Yes. She did last night because I told you we like let her sleep in our bed a couple days a week because like
Yeah.
she's
Well, you go to bed at like
I go to
7
bed. Well, it's
now,
easier
so-
now. It's like 7:00. And last night we were going to bed and she goes, "Good night, everyone." And my heart just melted. It's so cute.
That is cute.
It was very cute. All right, should we talk some birds? Get back
Yeah,
to
I
the notes.
feel
You want to
like-
start with a note and then get to the birds? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you just
I
change
actually
the
have a
note
good.
thing.
I actually
You
have a.
can't like just
I know. Okay.
shirk it. I think everyone's sitting there like, all right, we'll get to the Eagles. Give me some notes.
All right. Okay.
I wonder if people were really saying that.
Here's what else. All right, I'll start with this.
Yes.
I texted you this one actually, but still, I think it's good for the pod.
Okay.
So the combine was last week. We'll talk about that. Risers, fallers, whatever, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I
Free
don't really.
agency
Yeah.
first.
Yeah,
Come on.
free
We'll
agency
get to the
first.
draft later. We're
So-
not at the draft yet, my friend.
I think they should do this from now on. I think when they measure quarterbacks, they should only measure them up to their eyes.
Yeah, you did text that, and I actually think it makes a lot of sense.
What's the point of measuring from their eyes up? It's useless space. Like it. What's it matter? Like
It's a good point.
so Bryce Young is 5'10" or whatever it was, right? Maybe
Just little.
maybe he has really long arm, really long legs. So his eyes are higher than a traditional 5'10" person would be. Maybe someone that's 5'11" has a bigger forehead.
Hold up. Forehead, maybe, and that would be a very tiny amount. But like, what do the legs have to do with it?
You're right about that. My bad.
Okay,
I'm saying like not every. I guess what I'm saying is this: not everyone that's 5'10",
but it's like we're talking tiny amounts, like
whatever. It's
forehead.
It's the real concern. Is the point
Yes,
I'm making.
we're worried
Right.
about big forehead guys.
So I'm
and then-
saying what we're really finding out with quarterbacks is how high they can see. That's what you're measuring for,
yeah,
right?
of course. of
So
course.
ultimately, it really only matters where your eyes are.
I don't disagree. Sure. I just think it's one of those things where I think, again, for the most part, I think the foreheads are probably, again,
Maybe
very.
there's only one way to find out. I'll tell you that much.
Marginal differences between people, and thus it's just what we do.
Yeah.
And thus you assume that if they're 5'10", you know their eyes are an inch or two below.
Well, an inch or two,
right. But I'm
inch or two
saying
can
that.
matter.
Yeah, I guess so. Look,
Yeah.
why not?
Like we're gonna get all
I
hype
just
about
don't
it.
think
If
there's
he's
a
like,
big difference. I think if you a guy's 6 foot, you know where his eyes are, just like you know where a 6'2" guy's eyes are, and it's the same
so
thing.
I think this time of year we do get very wrapped up in like, well, he's 6'1" and not 6 foot, and then you look at them right next to each other and you can't even tell the difference.
Right.
But if we're going to go down the silly road of like you're a big hand size guy.
I am
right?
a hand size guy.
So
yes.
like ultimately, if we're going to go down the road of like extreme overreaction to extreme measurements, then I think the eyesight makes the most
I don't
sense.
hate it.
You are right that it's probably going to be
Marginal.
mostly the same
But
for everybody.
Look, I'm saying that I agree. Let's do it.
Imagine like the
I
announcers
co-sign.
after the combine being like, Bryce Young might measure 5'10", but his eyes are half an inch higher than Drew Brees. So he's seeing more. Like, imagine that. It would be glorious. So I almost tweeted it, but then I didn't feel
It's a good take.
I think it is.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I don't know if it's necessary, but I don't hate it.
Thank you.
There you go.
It's like the combine.
Yeah, well said. All right, I don't really want to talk draft. I want to get into the free agency stuff. We've got lots of time for draft, but just a quick back from the combine, like, what do you want to say about the combine?
Well, I did my first mock draft.
I saw. So I actually I was going to say this for later, but sure, we'll just go with that. Here's what I want to know. Because you said mock draft 1.0. I saw your tweet and you said, not going to lie, it's perfect.
I think it
is.
You
gave yourself an A+ for it.
I did, which I rarely do.
So why are you going to do more? Because I know you're going to do 2.0 and 3.0 and 4.0. Like, why? You got it right. You should be done.
Because
you should be done. It's over.
Right.
Am I wrong?
Because deep down, what kills me in my life is I'm always chasing perfection.
And but this is pretty. You said perfect.
I know, but
how can something that's perfect not be perfect?
But it can always get better.
But what are you talking about?
What's Jalen say? It's the journey. It's not about the arrival.
But it can't get better than perfect.
Well,
you gave yourself an A+.
But there can be a new definition of perfect.
Maybe.
Well, definitely.
I see.
Like what we considered perfect a year ago might not.
You can't say the 1.0 is perfect and then keep doing it.
It's fair, but like also things change.
Yeah,
they could sign somebody. They could so my perfect today might not be my perfect next week.
That was a good spin.
Thanks.
That was a good spin.
I got there eventually.
You got there eventually. All right, good. You want to do your mock draft?
Kind of. So
obviously you do. You brought it up.
All right,
Go for it.
Here would be I'm going to mispronounce his name, but here would be the guy that I think people are very much undervaluing. Khalil Kancey out of.
I don't think after the combine people are undervalued.
Well, but when I tweeted that he's a possibility,
he
did. But when I tweeted that he's a possibility at 10, I got a lot of like, no way, that's way too high, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing people have to realize. He plays an extremely important position and does an extremely important thing well. He is maybe the best pass rushing defensive tackle. Now, Jalen Carter is certainly probably ahead of him, but there's all this Jalen Carter talk that he might fall out of the top 10 now because of what's happening with this off the field thing. So Khalil and I know I'm mispronouncing his first name, and I apologize, but Kancey out of Pittsburgh is undersized for sure, but he has an electric first step. He gets right after the quarterback. He had 8 sacks as a defensive tackle last year in college, which is really good since they play 12 or 13 games. He played at Pitt. It's not like they were playing in, the national, like they weren't playing multiple postseason games. So I think, and if you look at, I don't think you should draft for need, but ultimately when you're picking at 10, you have to pick an impact player. This was my issue with Jordan Davis last year, is that he would have to be an impact pass rusher to be worth the 13th pick. Kancey's best skill is rushing the passer. And so a concern is, well, he's undersized, so they'll just double team him. Fine. If they're going to double team him, that's a win for everybody else on the line. So I really like Kancey at number 10. And then with the 30th pick, I took Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama. I am in on a running back with 30th. I'm not saying reach for one, whatever, but I think 30 is a great spot to take like an elite level running back prospect.
I'm fine with it. I don't want them to do it. I think they have so many holes defensively, especially moving forward, and how keeps bringing up, look at all our draft picks, to rebuild the defense. Like the offense is pretty set.
No, again, I'm fine with not. I'm just in on it.
I get it. And look, if they take a running back at 30, I'm not going to crush them for it. If they take a running back at 10, I don't care how good Robinson is, I'm probably going to crush him for it. But I wouldn't crush him at 30. I'd rather, if they're going to take a running back, they do it in the second round, personally.
Yeah, and I would say the thing with Bijan Robinson, my ultimate opinion on it is, because I put in, and if you're new to listening, we have a Go Birds Twitter group, which has been very active. It's fun to see everybody talking to each other. But I put in there, which has kind of turned into my safe space for takes. I'll put it in there first before I launch it to the whole world.
Look at this.
Yeah. So thanks. So I put in there.
I love that. If you're not watching the video, The people who are watching the video just got to see the genuine smile on Elliot.
It's such a safe space.
I can tell you love it.
So if you haven't joined yet, you just go to Twitter, you search Go Birds Real Ones in the Twitter communities, and it should come up. And it's also on our Twitter page. But so I put in there that I'm kind of getting into the idea of Bijan Robinson at 10. But here's what I ultimately decided. No mature organization takes a running back that high. Like, I agree he might be the 10th best player in the draft. I agree he'd be amazing with the team. It's an instance where you just have to be responsible. You know, it's like when I'm looking at stuff I want to buy online, I know deep down I shouldn't buy it. And I look at it for days and days and I keep it in the cart and I relaunch the browser. But eventually I'm like, Elliot, you know you shouldn't do this. And so I don't do it. And this is what it is with Bijan Robinson. He is a great player. He would be awesome in the offense, blah, blah, blah. We all know you don't take a running back.
Yeah.
We just know it.
Look, and I told you I had a draft take to remind me about it. You didn't.
My bad. Well, I was thinking at the end of the pod.
I remembered. But it's all good. No worries. You know, because I didn't think we would do draft stuff early in the pod.
I didn't either.
Here we are doing draft stuff early in the pod. My draft take is, and it's more of a macro thing, but I just thinking about like, you know, the top pass rushers in the NFL, the top cornerbacks in the NFL, all that stuff. And I know this draft is heavy on cornerback. Take D lineman early. Just take D lineman early. I mean, you look at the best of the best in the league. Like, there's a lot of later round corners who are great. The Eagles, 2 guys they had this past year, 2nd and 3rd rounders, right? Slay was a 3rd round pick. Bradbury was a 2nd round pick back in the day. Like every single, other than Chris Jones was a 2nd round pick, like every single great pass rusher in the league was a 1st round.
Well,
pick.
and
most of them are top 10 picks. And when you have a pick, especially this high in the draft, I feel like you have to maximize it on a position like this.
Well, and I think that there's become, and we actually really are getting into draft now, but I think there's become this notion like you got to take a cornerback at 10 because you're losing James Bradbury. And there's truth to it. But guys, they're also losing their top 4 defensive tackles.
Yep.
The heart of the defensive line is a bigger need than the number 2 corner. I think this year showed the value of having a great number 2 corner because all teams have 2 great receivers now, pretty much, besides the Giants. But but the inside of the defensive line is a bigger need. Their top 4 guys are gone. I know Jordan Davis is a top guy because he was a top pick, but he was the 5th defensive tackle last year. Milton Williams, probably the 5A or 6, whatever you want to call him. They need to draft. And when you pick this high, presumably you don't think you're going to be picking this high again. Like, this isn't their pick. They acquired this. Maybe Howie is able to pull off a trade with a team like, a team that you assume is going to be bad so that we also end the draft saying, well, this pick could be high. But in theory, they only have 1 first-round pick next year, and it's going to be theirs. And I don't think anybody thinks it's going to be inside the 20s.
No. So, again, unless Howie moves back from 10 this year and gets a next year's first, or moves back from 30 and somehow gets a first for that, which I think is
there's those things. But you're not planning on drafting at 10.
Absolutely.
So at 10, you have to get somebody. Look, I think positional value matters. I think positional need matters like 5%. But ultimately, what they have to do at 10, like trade up, trade back, whatever, they have to get a stud.
Yeah,
it's like the Devontae pick. They had to get
that's what we said the whole time.
Get a stud.
We were like, we would love Devontae, we love whatever, but whatever dude you pick in this spot has to matter.
Yeah,
like,
and that's what this is again.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. All right, let's get to the franchise stuff because today is the day. And I think you have we just talked about on the radio, Elliot, check him out on the morning show every Tuesday, 7:45.
Yeah.
Elite.
I'm getting used to the morning call now.
Yeah. Well, it's better than getting on at like 6 a.m. with Angela, right?
Yeah.
It used to be like a go-to. Hey, Elliot, hop on at 6:10.
Well, the other funny thing is, and I love Rhea Hughes, lucky to work with her. So when Angela was here, she would text me. It would normally be like, hey, could you come on at 6:40 a.m.?
Yeah.
So I'm just now getting to the point where she texts me, I don't go like
yeah.
Because now she'll take me about Eagles or something fun, right?
Yeah.
But when the 6:40 text was coming in, I was like, never super
This
excited.
is going to totally change my night and my morning.
Exactly.
But I think your take on the franchise thing is really interesting because, look, we did a poll today of do you want the Eagles to franchise CJGJ if they don't come to a long-term deal today with him? And 71% of Eagles fans said they did.
Crazy.
And I think the crazier thing is whenever we've done it at the station, whenever I see people online doing it, beat writers, whoever it is, anytime there is a poll with the 3 big names of Javon Hargrave, James Bradbury, and Gardner Johnson, and we talked about it last time, I said I would take Hargrave as my first choice.
I would too.
And you would too. It is overwhelming. CJGJ. Like, I'm talking like 80% of the vote is him. And then Bradbury gets like 2 or 5 and Hargrave's like 15 or 20 or 10 or whatever it is. Like, I get that he's younger and he's a nice player. And I know he's like outspoken on that, but like, I want to get to the franchise stuff, but before we dive into what I think is an interesting take from you on the franchise stuff, just quickly with this CJG, why do you think it is that he is like far and away the person Eagles fans want back the most?
So
like far and away.
I think it's because he talks trash and he has a great personality.
But is that really?
But I'm not killing.
Simple?
Well, I'm not killing.
I mean, Eagles fans that like we can't look past.
I don't think it's.
All right, no, look, he's a good player. But I'm talking for it to be that drastic.
Not
like, like again. Javon Hargrave is a more important player.
And a better player.
Like, yes, he's older. If you want to say CJGJ over him because of the age, I get that. But for I'm not reacting to CJGJ winning these polls. I'm reacting to him winning these polls by 56%. I know.
Well, and James Bradbury's a better player.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think with Chauncey, it's the age. I think he's an exciting player. And I look, we interact with Eagles fans all the time. We know that they are a smart group of people. But I do think that it's okay for an extent for a fan just to be like, I love this guy. Mm-hmm. So there is part of that, right? But ultimately, here's what Chauncey is. And, it's not his fault he missed games. But for what it's worth, he did miss, if you want to be real, like he missed. No, I think it was like 7, wasn't it?
7? I thought it was 5.
I thought it was more.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. And again, freak injury, whatever. But he did miss time last year. Ultimately, I also think it's somewhat telling that when the Saints traded him, they didn't get much for him.
4th and a 5th or something?
Yeah. So I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a nice player. I think he is, the interceptions are hard to tell because on one hand, I go, that's a lot of interceptions. On the other hand, interceptions cannot always be the best indication of how good a player is. There's a little bit of, I don't want to say luck, but
there's some flukiness.
Yeah. So I think he is an above average / good, maybe just under very good safety. I do not think he's somebody that should be top 5 on your team in cap hits. And if he is going to, they're not going to franchise tag him. They are not going to franchise.
We'll get to that in a second.
But if you're going to talk about paying a safety like $14-15 million a year, I don't know, man. I don't think that's good use of resource. I think that when you rank positions, if we were going to sit here on the pod and rank positions from most important to least important, I think safety would be near the bottom. Like,
certainly, look, just if you
quarterback,
just did defense, linebacker would be the only position on the defense we'd say was less important than safety.
And honestly, I think there's a somewhat of a debate with that. I think having good linebackers last year, we saw that they do matter. So ultimately, if they pay Chauncey and he's back, like, I think he's a good player. I think he's a good locker room guy, I guess. I mean, he's a little bit of a loose cannon. Yeah. But, I think what I like about Chauncey is he is very much, he will support the locker room. I don't think you'll ever see Chauncey throw another player under the bus, right? But I also think Chauncey's somebody that, if we're being real, if you're the head of security or whatever, you're not worried about him getting in physical trouble. But if you're a PR rep, you're probably like,
about what he's
what's he going to tweet today?
It just happened.
Yeah, it just
week,
happened. Right. So of the 3, I also think people want him back, and I get that. But I don't know. When I was down in Indianapolis, I did not get the vibe of Chauncey.
Well, hold on. I want to get to that. I also think one other thing with CJGJ too is the versatility, which is helpful and stuff. But I think people see young Malcolm in him from that perspective. Not the way.
Malcolm was a better player.
Agree. Yeah. And I think the Doc to Malcolm, I think there's something in this town with safeties where when we see a guy like that, we kind of are like, that's our dude. Let's go. All right. I want to do the franchise thing. Then what you heard at the comment about him, but just your general thoughts. You have a very strong belief that these guys are not getting franchise tags.
So look, I never want to say 0% because things change. But when I was in Indianapolis, the sense I got was this team is not using the franchise tag. Now, could something have changed in the last 4 days and I haven't found that out? It's possible. But when I was in Indy, the sense I got was they are not using it. Now, why aren't they using it? Because let's be honest, well-run organizations do not use the franchise tag. I saw something on Twitter. The Cowboys have used it 6 years in a row. Cowboys are not a well-run franchise, right? The Giants today are deciding, can they get Daniel Jones signed in time so that they can franchise Saquon Barkley? The dumbest thing you can do outside of drafting a running back at number 2 overall is franchise tag him, right? So if the Eagles use the franchise tag, I would almost bet my life that a player will not play this year on the franchise tag. Is there a chance that today at 4:00
it's a leverage thing?
Is there a chance? Yes, but the tough thing about that is it's a leverage thing in the way that the player technically can't negotiate with other people. But in reality, if they
you still have to sign to a deal, or else you're stuck paying them that money.
But you also they hold $14 million. So if they franchise
heading into free agency,
and they only have $6 million right now. So I'm not sure of the rule if you have to have the $14 million in space, but they might have to clear space just to have it all on hold for Chauncey. Now you would probably get that back when you come to a deal, but I do not think they're going to franchise Chauncey.
I'm with you. All right, in terms of the value of CJGJ to the Eagles, I don't think you're as hot or you're as expected, because I do think that a lot of Eagles fans, the polls have been, who would you keep? I think if you ask most Eagles fans which of these three are they going to keep, they would say CJGJ as well.
I mean, look, I think Chauncey is closer to a replacement level player than he is a legit difference maker. Wow. I think he's a good player, but again, he was out most of the year. Not most of the year, but he was out a decent portion of the year. And I think we all agree Reed Blankenship was fine. Did he make some mistakes? Of course. He's an undrafted rookie playing in the first. But I don't think the secondary wasn't a match. They had the number one secondary in the league, and Chauncey missed a decent portion.
Reed made some plays.
Reed made some plays. And I know people like Chauncey's a better player than Reed, but this is if it was talking about, who should they play in the Super Bowl, then it's like, yeah, you play Chauncey. But now we're talking about positional value in like how much they cost. And the reality is there's a chance Reed Blankenship is going to cost like 1/28th of what Chauncey costs. He is not 1/28th of the player. It's just not. And when you're paying Jalen the money, when you have to pay Devontae next year, you have to be picky on where you're going to have to be like, you know what, we might have to get by with that guy in that spot. And so if they sign Chauncey and it's, I'll see the contract and react then. I'm not saying signing him is a bad idea. I just don't think if you have one big swing in free agency, and that's what I think they have. I think they have one big swing. I don't think it's worth using on Chauncey.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. Now, I think, look, we both said Hargrave is one we want back. You said,
yeah, someone told me in Indy someone in Indy told me that he thinks Hargrave might be the highest paid non-quarterback in free agency.
Which means that Javon Hargrave probably not
is probably gone.
Yeah. And
unless the Eagles are really, but he's old.
Look, you've been all over saying like, I came into this free agency thinking like, all right, they're going to choose one of these guys and definitely keep them. Like the more this plays out, I definitely think there is a chance they might not keep any of these guys. I'm starting to come to your side with that. And I do think for what it's worth, I will figure it out. I'll be okay with it, especially depending on how they fill in those holes and stuff. But I think Eagles fans will be really upset if they don't sign one of these three guys.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I don't know.
Right or wrong. No, I think that the response, again, it's been a real positive time for Eagles fans, as it should be. I mean, they just went to the freaking Super Bowl. They almost won it. They've done a great job. Howie's done a great job this last year plus 2 years, like we talk about. I think people are going to be annoyed. And I think it's going to be the first time in a little while we've had a little like, how could they not sign these guys? Or whatever.
Look, they're going to have to really nail these draft picks.
Yeah.
But I think of the three, and I think Sayamalu's right there in terms of like money. It wouldn't surprise me if Sayamalu got more money than Bradbury.
Yeah. Well, if that happens, there's a 0% chance he's an Eagle. 0.
Sayamalu?
Yeah, if he gets that kind of money. They're just not. They have Cam Jurgens waiting. They've got Jack Driscoll who can play guard at a good level.
The only counter I would give to you on that is they really value the line, they really value Stoutland, and they really value Kelsey. And I think all those things are in Sayamalu's favor.
I get it.
And he's not super old, is he? What's he? 29?
No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with paying when you have all these holes on your team, especially on the defensive side. Like I know you're like defense doesn't matter. You have to have a defense. You have to roll out a defense with NFL players to play defense.
But if they lose Sayamalu,
you play Cam Jurgens.
Okay, and who knows how he is?
I know, but you draft him in the second round.
Right, but the offense matters more ultimately.
I think Cam Jurgens can play guard.
Maybe.
Everyone who's watched him said, like, the people who understand, like, Richie's like, he can play guard better than Small today. And now Richie is not a huge Small fan.
Right.
But, like,
maybe, I'm just saying, ultimately, for this team to be
floored. I'd be floored if they don't put any money into the defense and they re-sign Samalo for a big amount of money. I would be absolutely floored by that.
Well, I think you should maybe be prepared to be floored. I'm not saying that means they're going to sign Sayamalu, but I do not think they are going to like run it back with the defense.
I'm not saying that. Yeah. I'm saying if they paid Sayamalu a lot of money, I would be shocked because that would mean they're definitely not signing any of these defensive guys. I would be floored. If they're like, all right, we've got one big free agent signing money-wise, we're giving $10 million a year, $12 million a year, $14 million a year to one person. If it's Samalo, I will literally be floored. Like I will be as shocked as I've been with anything in this pod in a long time.
So if I had to pick one of those four players to bring back, I would bring back Sayamalu. Like if I
Wait,
got
you would
one,
choose to?
yes.
I
If
think
if
that's
I got
crazy.
one, let's say their money is almost the same.
Oh my God, that's insane,
This
dude.
team is only going to be as good as the offense next year.
You need a defense.
I know you
though.
need a defense,
You need a defense.
but the defense is not going to be.
Sayamalo is way more replaceable considering the guys you already have in the building, and the freaking offensive line coach is the best in the history of the sport, or whatever you want to say.
Fair.
So you're saying you wouldn't trust Jeff Stoutland to figure it out at guard more than the defense not having players?
Well,
this is crazy.
But it's one player. I'm not talking about if you said if I could have the three
one
players
player that
or the
makes
one
them better.
player. Yeah.
Personally, I'm putting all my resources into defense this offseason. I'm drafting defense. I'm signing defense. Like, the offense is set. You got a great offense. And they're going that. I know that's not going to happen. They will draft guys and all that. But, like,
the offense will not be set if the offensive line's a problem. So my priority.
Again, I can't pay Samalo that kind of money when how do you know that Cam Jurgens isn't a better guard than Samalo?
I don't. And that would be up to Stoutland.
That Jeff Driscoll can't fill in and give them somewhat the production of Samalo.
Stoutland.
Don't you trust Stoutland?
Yeah. If Stoutland comes up to me, if I'm Howie and Stoutland comes up to me and goes, look, Sayamalu's great, but I honestly think I can get by with Jurgens and Driscoll. Then yeah, of course, right? But the only point I'm making is in terms of what's going to make this team go next year, it's going to be the offensive line and the offense, right? So ultimately, I see your point about the defense, but the defense is just not going to be the unit it was last year.
But that doesn't mean that you don't get good players.
It doesn't. I agree. I'm talking about one player, though. I'm not talking about.
Talking about. The point is you have to look at your team and say, all right, what do we have? What do we have in cheap guys? Where do we have positions?
I agree with that.
We can backfill, right?
Right.
They have guys on the offensive line who at least we think, look, Jack Driscoll, if nothing else, we have seen Jack Driscoll play guard at a decent level in the NFL, right? Like he's been fine, right?
Yeah, but the other part of this is, how are you going to feel if next year their center and guard are Jurgens and Driscoll?
Obviously, I would prefer it's Kelsey.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I would not feel comfortable going into next year.
What is what it is with Kelsey? Like, Kelsey's either.
Yeah, but I think Kelsey's going to be back.
So do I.
Yeah,
so
and that helps, of course. I'm just saying ultimately, and this is not a surprise.
I mean, Jurgens is the guy who Kelsey handpicked. You don't think you want to play next to him?
No, again, if they think Jurgens is good enough, fine. I'm just saying I need to feel confident in the line before I'm worrying about the defense.
Again, I think I understand your point. You can't put everything in the offense, nothing on the defense. Like you are.
I think that's already where it is.
No,
that's
it's not where it is. I get your point. Offense is more important, and I get that. Whatever. I think you go too far with it. I think you take it to a degree where, look, the Chiefs last year, they put in offense, but they still had some dudes
of
on
course
defense.
You have to have
they
defense.
Still made plays on defense.
And I'll say this. I think about it almost every day. Howie Roseman should wake up thankful beyond belief that Hassan Reddick is not like slamming the door asking for a new contract.
I know.
If Hassan Reddick was a free agent this offseason,
oh my God,
he might get like not quarterback money. The dude is young, has double-digit sacks 3 years in a row.
It's the best contract in the sport right now.
Unbelievable.
At least,
dude, you know his base salary this year is like $1 million.
It's insane.
He's like, and who knows? Maybe he will ask for a new deal. And if he does, Eagles pretty much have to do it. But man, they should feel very, 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 very lucky that it looks like he's not going to ask for a new deal.
Yeah. No,
which is foolish. Like if I was him, and granted I'm bad at negotiations, but if I was him, I'd be like, I should be the top paid defensive end in the league, and he's not. He's like 18th or something like that.
Well, I would guess after another good year, and that will absolutely happen.
It's gonna be hard to I mean, he's a great player, so who knows? But as we always talk about, when you're a player, you got to strike when that's hot.
I feel like the next radio show we have to do an offense defense thing because this is just
and I'm not even disagreeing with you on it. I'm just saying ultimately, you're right. I probably go too far.
I think you go too far.
And I acknowledge that. I'm just saying. I know that for the team to be good next year, they have to have a great.
I like that you're even doing it with the Sixers now. I saw your tweet.
Oh, I know.
You're even throwing. He's like, defense doesn't matter.
I mean, it's just whatever. We'll do a pod. This will be our Go Birds radio.
All right. I want to get back to the franchise tag today. The deadline first. Download the BetParx Sportsbook and Casino app. I mean, guys,
it's just so rude.
It's rude.
You haven't done
it. It's rude. I mean, we give you like literally for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Well, and also,
it's not even
nothing. It's not even about helping us. It's
about the fun of it. It's about the awesomeness of it.
Imagine if you had a great friend and that friend texted you all the time and was like, "You should do this. You should do this. You should do this." And this is like a great friend. You talk to him. Look, we talk to you guys multiple times a week, right?
Yeah.
And if your friend kept telling you to
do
something,
I talk to my family.
Exactly. And you didn't do it at a certain point, I think the friend would be like, do you not trust me?
Do you like not care about my opinion?
Right. So I think when we tell you to download the Parks app, it's because we are trying to be good friends to you.
I love this.
Thank
this is such a great point.
Yeah.
And that's all we're trying to do is help you out because it's so much fun. We have
Right.
such a good time. And when you're watching these games, which we're going to do anyway, it's just way more fun having some action on it. Like last night's Sixers game, if you had a bet on any player over, you would have won.
I know.
Just anyone.
Well,
Pick
Maxey's
anyone.
overs are insane right now.
Unbelievable.
I didn't bet last night, but I would have been curious to know what Jalen McDaniel's over was.
It wasn't
I mean,
20.
like
I'll
6.
tell you that much.
He probably hit it in the first
20,
minute, 6.5.
Yeah, there's some opportunity to be made, and the soccer stuff.
Very fun.
Action is back.
Unfortunately, the first soccer bet I gave you did not hit.
Yeah, it failed miserably.
Very miserably.
Yeah.
Not only did they not win, they didn't score.
Yeah, not great Union action.
No, they have a big game tonight.
You were like goal score central.
I know.
So
that's the other problem with suggesting things to friends.
Yes, that's true. But that's why we bet just to have fun. And you can do it too. Download the app now in the App Store, Google Play Store, or at betparks.com. Use our promo code GOBIRDS. That's GOBIRDS. First bet, $750 in site credit back. If it is not a winner, you must be 21 and present in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so your official prediction, no franchise tag usage from the Philadelphia.
Yes.
Okay.
I would say, again, 2% maybe, but I do not think they are going to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you let's get so we are less than a week away from free agency. We got the Parks Picks pod later this week, but essentially the next pod we do, we'll be reacting to stuff happening. Like it'll probably be like Tuesday, legal tampering's happening. Like, well, maybe we'll do, we'll do the, extra.
Yeah. We'll probably emergency
week, whatever,
pods
all that stuff. But, we don't have that many more times before this gets really real. So some predictions out of you. First and foremost, official prediction.
Right.
Do any of these three big names we're talking about come back to the Eagles?
God, it's so tough. My gut tells me Bradbury.
Wow. That'd be really interesting too, because that was the one at the end of the season. Everyone's like, well, he's gone.
Well,
of all of them, it was like, he's gone.
Here would be my rationale as to why. I don't think he's going to get like the 17 million a year people think. I think he's going to be maybe closer to like 10 or 11. I think they don't like to go into the draft with major holes. And if they don't have Bradbury, you could argue it's a major hole. Now, they've been comfortable with having that be a hole up until training camp. But I think Bradbury is good. I mean, they like him, obviously. And I don't know. The Slay thing is starting to feel weird to me.
So that was what I was going to get to.
And so I think if you have Bradbury locked up, like there is an ability to move on from Slay quicker. And maybe the cornerback that they take in this year's draft, maybe not at 10, but at 30 or wherever, that's who you develop while Bradbury is your one. So I think Hargrave's going to be too much. I think he is somebody that they would prefer to pay if possible. I just think he's going to be too much. And I just don't get the vibe on Chauncey. Maybe I'll be wrong. But so if I had to pick of the three, I'd pick Bradbury.
Okay. Let's get to the Slay thing. And thus
the Matt Patricia thing.
Yeah. You just take the floor with Matt Patricia.
Okay.
We'll get to the Slay part of it because the Slay stuff is weird. And I want to hear your thoughts on what he had to say last week, on his podcast, that all stuff. But quickly, the Matt Patricia rumor, which obviously, if Matt Patricia is coming here, it would be really weird if Darius Slay is in the plans after all. I mean, he has earmuffs 1, 2, 3. He talks so much shit about Matt Patricia publicly, like an insane amount of shit he has talked about his former coach publicly.
Okay, so I have an analogy.
Your thoughts
for this.
on the Patricia?
I have an analogy for this. I might use it on air. I'll try it here. It's like my safe space. Tell me if you think it works.
Okay. Love it.
So you watch Seinfeld.
I do.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And a big part of Seinfeld is that George and Jerry will date girls. And they'll be like, attractive. Like they'll be great girls, but they'll be like, she laughs funny. Or she's got like this, right?
The big hands.
Right, exactly. So here's my view on the Matt Patricia thing. He's a linebackers coach. So it's not like he's the head coach. He's not the defensive coordinator. At the end of the day, it matters if you bring this guy in the building. Like Jerry and George can be like, oh, it's silly, whatever. These things bother them, so they can't be with these girls. The way I look at the Matt Patricia thing is you cannot bring this guy in the building. And if they do it, I think it's such a sign of a larger issue that, man, they'll make the playoffs because I believe in Jalen and Nick.
That take.
Dude, let me tell you. I think hiring Matt Patricia would be maybe the worst thing they could do this. I can only think of a handful of worse things. Like bringing Gettleman on as an advisor, I think would be dumb.
That's
Matt Patricia.
So here's
wait, let me finish. Here's the thing about Matt Patricia. He has been Jack Fritz is just ruining my Patricia.
Nobody cares about
Yeah.
There it is.
Any Andrew Painter update, by the way?
He's not
Okay. Yeah.
He's not going to make it.
6 weeks, he'll be back.
It's a shame because I said I was going to buy an Andrew Painter shirt.
Yeah, that's your
But
fault.
okay, so
All right, so
Matt Patricia.
midstream too.
I know.
Worst timing.
I
for
know.
Fritz.
So Matt Patricia, you cannot bring this guy in the building. If you like, we're going to talk about the Slay thing, and that's part of it. When he was fired from Detroit, multiple players were thrilled that guy was gone. He goes to New England, and I know he's a defensive head coach that was in a weird role on offense and Judge and whatever. It was a disaster. The dude is not worth hiring. He is not a good enough coach that it is worth bringing in that vibe into the locker room. And if they hire him, maybe it'll be the whole, well, we talked to Slay and he's cool with it and they'll blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is these two have beef. And Slay showed this week that, and I appreciate about him, he's willing to speak his mind, but he also pointed a finger at Josiah Scott. In this season, next year is going to be rocky in the way that the expectations are going to be high. It's going to be tough to meet them. There are going to be moments where things do not go as planned. And I cannot have somebody in that locker room that I know, and I'll say it, I know is a bad locker room guy. Matt Patricia is not somebody you want around your team. He was an issue in Detroit. The players hated him. It was a mess in New England. Darius Slay, if he's back, is a huge influence in that locker room. You can't tell me that he is not going to be on the low to guys like, yeah, Matt sucks, right? So you already have a new defense coordinator. You're bringing in somebody potentially that's a disaster. Honestly, when I first saw it, I refrained from tweeting from it for a little because I thought it had to be a joke. It would be so against everything Nick has preached, connection, getting along, doing things for love. Are you serious with this guy? It would be a red flag for the organization. It would be catastrophic. It would make me question everything about the organization. Really everything. I'm not kidding. I think this would be the worst possible. No, I'm not.
I'm saying I think you are.
This would be the worst possible move I think that they could make this offseason. And for someone I've defended Howie. I've defended Nick when people were ripping him. I've defended the organization when people said they were a mess. If they do this, I'm going to be out for at least a week.
Okay. I like that. I like at least a week. Originally, you said I'm going to pick them to not make the playoffs. You backed off that, which I appreciate.
They're too good.
Yeah.
And Jalen's good, and I trust Nick. Do not do it. Do not do it.
Here's where I'm at. I don't want Matt Patricia. I'm not a huge Matt Patricia fan. Whatever. I think you're going way, way, way too far with this. That if they, first and foremost, I agree with the Slay thing. Look, I think if they bring Patricia in, it's a sign that Slay's gone. And that's a different discussion because I think there's a real argument to be made that keeping Bradbury and trading Slay from a cost perspective and what you can do off of that makes sense. So I'm not, and Slay's older. He's 32. He's going to be
still
33
very good,
this season.
But you're right that there's logic
to it. He's on the back end.
He makes $17 million.
These guys fall off like that at that position.
You're right.
They're at a certain age and they lose a certain amount of speed or a certain amount of ability. It's boom, done, over. So I'm not necessarily I would be if that's the way they feel and they play it out with trading Slay, I'm fine with that. The thing with Patricia, I'm not a Matt Patricia guy. I think he's kind of a goof, all that. But let's be honest. There is not a single linebacker coach out there they will hire who is more qualified for that job. Not one person who has the resume that Matt. And look, I know that the last few years have been bad and his Detroit job was bad. He won 3 Super Bowls as a coordinator. And I know that's Belichick and I know that's Brady, but you certainly can't say the team can't win with Matt Patricia on it because they've done it 3 times. So I'm just saying, and again, I would not hire Matt Patricia. I would not. I'm just saying, I think that going as far as you are going with this, the Slay part aside, I think you're taking it too far. I think you're not bringing him in to be a defensive coordinator. Lots of guys struggle as head coaches, then go back to being position coaches or coordinators and do a great job at it.
Yeah, but lots of guys don't have the majority of their roster celebrate when they're fired. So you were right that
as the head coach.
Yeah, but I get that. But that's also about personality. So you're right that
you can learn from it. Howie got shoved in a closet, learned from it, and came back. You don't think Matt Patricia might have learned from the mistakes he made as head coach and can come back and be a good position coach?
Frankly,
we're talking about being a linebackers coach.
It's not. To me, it's not about his ability to coach. I know he's the linebacker coach. He'll be at every practice. He'll be way
overqualified to be the linebacker.
Fine, whatever.
Right? Way overqualified.
Fine, but he'll be at every practice. He'll be in the defensive meetings. He'll be in the defense meeting with coaches, with players. He'll be interacting with.
So how do you know Matt Patricia? Again, all we
listen
know
to
is
Darius Slay
as a head coach. And look, Slay's not necessarily the easiest guy to get along with. Darius Slay's got his own issues.
No. I disagree with that. I think there's an argument to be made. And look, Slay is active on social media, so maybe I see it more. But when Slay has a good game, I see more players from other teams tweeting about, congrats, Slay. He's the best. Slay, again, I've been in the locker room. I've done shows.
With players, but this is a coach player. Maybe he has issues with authority.
But
there's all kinds of
stuff. The point I'm making is
that.
you will find way more people that don't like Patricia than you do Slay.
That's fine. Again, like Josh McDaniels, right? And we think he's a bad head coach.
Would you
right?
bring him in?
No, listen to me though.
Yeah.
He was in Denver. The exact type of things that were said about him in Denver were said about him in Denver. The exact type of things as Patricia, like even worse.
Yeah.
That Rich Olenberger or whatever, that thread he put out when he got the Broncos job was like
bad.
It was bad.
It was.
You know
close,
what he did? He went back to New England and was a great offensive coordinator again because he wasn't the head coach. Like I'm just saying, and again, this I do not want Matt Patricia.
You would not do it.
I would not bring him in. I'm just saying I do not think if they bring him in, and again, the Slay part is its own thing. We're going to get to that in a second. But I do not think if they bring Matt Patricia in, it is like, what a disaster. I'm not there with that. I don't want him, but if they're bringing him to be a linebacker coach and Slay's not here, ultimately, if it's coordinated with a Slay trade away, it's fine.
But
whatever.
But like I think
you're going
when
way
we're
too far,
talking,
being like it's culture.
I think it is. I think it
How
absolutely.
do you know Matt Patricia? Have you been in a room with
we
him?
don't know any of these guys that well.
He was a bad head coach. He was a really bad head coach.
But he was also bad in New England last year. It was a mess
as an
last year.
offensive coordinator.
But I'm saying is it does not appear that working with this guy goes well. It
They
didn't
won
work.
3 titles with him.
I'm talking before that, right? And for what it's worth, like let's not sit here and act. I mean,
but again,
it was Belichick and Tom Brady.
But he won. He won. He was a part. He was the defensive.
And you said that Josh McDaniels has learned. McDaniels is terrible in Las Vegas.
In Vegas, I'm talking about a guy not being a head coach. That was my example.
I know. But
I'm saying someone could be a bad head coach, but a great coordinator or a great position coach. That's my whole point.
But so here would be my counter to that too, right? You're saying it's just a linebacker coach. Then why do it for him? If it's not that
because he would be. He could be. An amazing he is way overqualified.
Go find another coach, not a coach that does not like you're talking about his resume. Part of his resume is people don't like him. That is part
people
of
in Detroit. People in New England love the guy.
Well, they're not bringing him back. Number one, and it doesn't seem Mac Jones and him got along. I'm just saying
that's why the Mac Jones thing. But he's also a defensive coach.
So the last 2 places
they put him in a bad spot.
But I'm saying the last 2 places he's been, he has had issue with the players. Mac Jones he didn't get along with, and Detroit didn't get along with. So at the end of the day, when this whole thing, the whole thing they've built is built on like getting along with each other, play for love. Like how many times on this?
No, you were hearing a perspective. Have you heard Matt Patricia talk about it? Like again, maybe Nick Sirianni knows Matt Patricia. Maybe some like Desai knows him. Like how do you know Matt Patricia won't come in and jive with? It's not like every player's always hated him. Like that's my point. Like guys in New England love the guy. Like do you understand what I'm saying though? Like I get your point. You're just making statements based on one thing,
right,
and not taking into account the whole thing.
But again, I think it's more than one thing. I think it's 2 things. It's in Detroit and it's his last.
Well, it's just the Mac Jones thing, and it seems like Mac Jones
matters.
Well, Mac Jones didn't get along with McDaniels either. Mac Jones seems like
okay, but look at the guys he didn't get along with. McDaniels, right? Patricia, Joe Judge.
Mac Jones walked off the field ripping the play call. Like Mac Jones seems like a bit of a nozzle too.
Yeah.
Like that's certainly possible.
I'm just saying, at the end of the day. And I know you're saying you wouldn't do it. So it's really just variations of disagreeing.
I just think you're going too far. Yeah, it's variations of disagreement.
Dude, I
think you're going way too far by saying it would be like an indictment of the team and the organization.
I think
to bring in a guy who's overqualified to be a linebacker coach to be the linebacker
If
coach.
the Cowboys, Giants, Niners, Chiefs, whoever, if they hired like the teams that we make fun of and don't like, if they hired Patricia, I disagree.
It's a linebacker
I think
coach.
if the Cowboys hired Matt Patricia, we would get on the pod and be like, oh man, that's a disaster.
Not if they bring him to be their linebacker coach.
The guy. I'm sorry.
I think you're going way too far with this. Again, he's won 3 Super Bowls. He's won more Super Bowls than anyone else. If they brought him in, he would have the most Super Bowls on the Eagles coaching staff by 3. Or like 2, I guess. Stoutland has 1.
I just frankly don't put much stock into that because it was a while ago. He wasn't the main reason they won. Like whatever, he was on the staff.
And again, he wouldn't be a defensive coordinator here. He would be a linebackers coach.
But it's about him being in the room. Do you see what I'm saying? He's still going to interact with you.
But
so
again,
what are we saying? We're going to bring him in, and it's okay if the other.
He's like a disaster with players. Like this is.
He was
as a head coach,
right?
But he was not as a defense. No. When he was a linebackers coach, when he was a position coach, he was great with players. They all freaking loved him. Right. That's why he got to be a defensive coordinator.
And that was a long time ago.
But again, that's a factual thing, right?
But it was a long time ago. And I'm saying that while his position matters, so what? We're just going to be like,
long ago. It's within the last decade, man.
Well, I'm saying it wasn't like last year. It was 2 jobs ago.
Right.
So
it was still that time was a way better representation of what he would be doing here than being the head coach of the Detroit Lions or an offensive coordinator in New England.
But I also think
right.
No, I don't think so because
we're
talking about his personality. If you look at how he
have you ever talked to Matt Patricia?
No.
Any idea what his personality is like?
Okay,
do you have any idea? We're going off what
I could do that for anybody.
In Detroit.
We could do that for anybody.
But again, like we're going off just one thing in Detroit where there is a lot of people in New England who loved him. So like it's not, you're just taking one part of it and saying, that's it. That's the thing. When there's other information that says that maybe it was a situational thing. Maybe it was the power got to his head. Maybe there's a lot of things that he could have learned from.
I'm not
you're just indicting him based on this one thing.
I am. And I am not
I think that's a little, we usually are a little more, but take the whole situation.
Yeah, I think it's a big part of the situation. I don't think it's talking about when he was a graduate assistant in college a few years. Like it's talking about that when these last two places he's been have not gone well. The last two places.
Hold up. Can we stop with the offensive coordinator thing? Like he's not going to be an offensive coach here.
No.
He did Belichick a solid.
But the point, I agree with you that it's different.
So like enough with that. Like
I'm talking about
the Lions thing.
The
last two things.
The last
he was Miss Cassie's offensive coordinator. Of course, it's not going to go well.
Put it this way, right?
It's like Juan Castillo's the nice guy in the world. He sucked as an offensive coordinator.
Put it this way. I could put you in any job in any organization, and I would guarantee you, no matter how unqualified you were, how whatever, people would not leave there saying, "I don't like James." I guarantee it, right? So I get your point about the offense, but ultimately it's about the person. And you're right. I don't know him. This isn't a personal thing for me.
He might have been humbled.
Maybe
he wasn't humbled.
I'm not taking the risk. That's what I'm saying.
But again, we can't talk to him. Like, don't you trust Nick Sirianni, Mr. Culture, Mr. Connectivity, and stuff? Don't you trust him to?
I thought I did.
But, so how can you not though? You're not in that room with him and Patricia. How do you know what Patricia's saying? How do you know what Patricia's?
To me, I'm not in a year that already is going to be tricky to navigate. I'm not bringing in a guy that I have to question. There's tons of look.
I understand your point. I'm saying like Nick Sirianni, if they bring him in, doesn't question him. Like, you know what I mean? Like they feel out.
Well, or what if like, and again, there's tons of variations of this. What if Sean Desai really wants him and Nick's like, are you sure? Like, I don't know about Sean Desai. Maybe Nick trusts.
Not, but again, Nick has to, we have to trust Nick with that. Right?
I just think at a basic level.
He chose Desai over Janard Wilson. Do we trust him?
At a basic level, right? I get that you wouldn't do it and I wouldn't do it. I think that's kind about all that matters.
Look,
again,
I'm talking about how far you went with it.
Well, it's because I feel strongly about it.
I know, but you said you wouldn't. The Eagles, as an organization, they're bad organization.
It would be no. I
just think you took it way too far.
I'm saying when look, when people make decisions that you question, if you have a big track record, of course you're like, wow, it's a bad decision, but I still think he's like a great guy, right? I'm not saying I'd be out on the Eagles forever. I'm just saying it would be to me an alarmingly bad decision that I would not expect them to make.
Okay. Again,
and in a year with so much turnover,
I would have me worried. It's that bad. I would not hire him, but I think I think he's insanely competent for the job you would be putting him in. And again, I
agree.
I don't know him. And again, he has not been a locker room issue for 3 teams that won the Super Bowl. So I'm just saying, like, I get your point, but there is evidence to say that having Matt Patricia on your team does not stop you from winning football games.
I agree with that. I'm not saying they can't win because of him. I'm just saying I want this dude as far away from my team. That's just my preference. I
just think you're going too far.
Less than zero interest in hiring Matt Patricia.
Look, I don't want him either. I just think you go too far with it, saying it's like this all-time disaster.
Yeah, I feel strong. It would be like
I could tell.
It would be maybe the worst decision I've seen them make.
And again, I think that's crazy. We're talking about a linebackers coach. All right. And again, a linebackers coach.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
keep him away.
Way too far.
Keep him away.
Way too far. All right, the Slay part of it. Because look, he did call out Josiah Scott during the season. After the Super Bowl, like that video on his podcast was, one of the dumber things that
this is funny because I don't feel strongly about that.
Talking about how good the secondary played in the Super Bowl? Dude, you guys stunk. Well, you got your asses beat. You couldn't stop Mahomes once in the second half. Like, wouldn't have been, or I guess one time and they threw a flag.
Well, I'm saying they gave up 180. Again, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it.
It was about as dumb a thing a player has done in like without doing something really bad. Like,
right.
And I remember, the tone, lights, camera, action, like we own them. Like he sounded like a freaking moron in that video. And I think every single Eagles fan did not like it. There were just degrees of not liking it, but every single Eagles fan was like, bro, like you sound like an idiot right now.
So
and again, I do think that, and I didn't take it this far, but it is calling out the coaching staff. It is calling out the defensive line. He's saying, like, we did our job, not why we lost, like calling out whatever. It's like saying, hey, don't blame us. Like, it's just a weak look, especially when, I'm sorry, you guys were a big part of the reason you lost the football game. So
I wouldn't have said it if I were him, right? I just don't think it's worth it. Like, what's the benefit? I mean, he has a pod, and I wouldn't have said it. I don't think saying that the secondary played well is a good look. I do think to a certain degree it's calling out other people. I mean, he's not wrong that they only had 180 yards, but whatever. I wouldn't have.
what about
have said
passer rating? How did Mahomes?
Yeah,
I mean, like,
again,
it's like
the defense didn't play well. The defense
much.
didn't play well. Yeah,
it was annoying. It annoyed me that Slay did that.
Yeah, that's fine.
And also, like, in general, can we be honest? Like, Darius Slay wasn't that good this year. Like, he was really good to start the year. He had a great first, 8 weeks or whatever. We're talking DPOY. He didn't even make an all-pro team by the end of the year.
It is wild, Brad.
Like, he
over
was
saying that
fine.
Wild,
like,
yeah.
Slay was good. Let's say he was good. All right.
I think he was.
He was not
good.
great this year. He was not. He was not a superstar player.
I mean, I think he was probably one of the top 6 outside, number 1 corners in the league. So how would you define that?
That's fine. He
wasn't
an all-pro.
Yeah,
so
you're right. He wasn't an all-pro.
Technically, wasn't one of the top 6. He wasn't one of the top.
Well, there was 4.
I guess it'd be 4.
Yeah. So yeah, but whatever. Like, I think Slay, to your point, I think Slay was real. I mean, he was awesome against Justin Jefferson. Like, I don't think there's any game I can think of. I guess maybe the Cowboys, they picked on him a little. Yeah, but Slay had, I don't know, a B+, A- year in my book. But that aside, yeah, I agree. Like, I don't get the benefit of doing it, but I also think where this team is at, I remember being in the locker room after the game, and I thought they were sad, right? I think they've now moved to mad. And I think you're seeing that in the way that they're mad they lost this game. You see the Chauncey tweet about Gannon. You see AJ talk about it on different pods, talking about the pun, and he knew whatever. And I think now they're mad. I don't know how else to say it. And I don't think, look, he has his own pod. He's had the pod all year, and this is the first time we're talking about something he said. So he's probably been pretty good on not calling guys out, but he did point a finger at Josiah Scott somewhat, which I didn't love after that Dallas game. So yeah, I wouldn't have said it if I were him. But I'm not. I mean, look, I'm worked up about the Patricia thing. You're worked up about this, so it's different.
And again, I'm not that worked up. I just thought it was so dumb. Like, I thought it was such a dumb thing to do. I thought it came off as weak. I thought, it was just so unnecessary. And I know you can defend your guy. You can go at Juju without saying that, without being like, oh,
But I think I think this is what they're going to battle next year. What they're going to battle next year is there's a lot of baggage now.
So all right, I know. And that's why you've talked about wanting new blood in here. So how do you think this things plays out? Like, because we really are like, oh, these 3 guys and this, that. If they trade Slay, it does change the structure of it all and all that. Like,
well, so
do you think Darius Slay going to get traded? Point blank.
Well, look, D Gunn, who I think is one of the best Eagles insiders of the past whatever years, I guess said something on his pod a week ago, hinting maybe. So I think when D Gunn says something, you listen.
Absolutely,
right?
You do.
But also, let's just look at it. He has a $17 million base salary, and there's still time, but they haven't redone that yet, right? So the Eagles only have $6 million in salary cap space. It was like last year when they didn't redo Hargrave, who had $14 million. It was noteworthy to me.
You thought they were going to.
And now it looks like Hargrave is
now
gone.
It looks like you should have redone it.
It looks like, yes, you're right. But also, to me, that was, this is not a player.
That we don't have budgeted for long term.
Yeah, because it's so easy to redo that. So Slay has a $17 million base salary. If they don't redo that, I don't know, within the before free agency, I think there's a chance he's gone.
Yeah, it's like you always say.
And again, if they bring in Patricia.
Right? Him and Lane are the only ones.
And Lane's not going anywhere. Now, Lane is
no, I'm talking about that they can extend and free up cap. Those are the
those are the only.
Yeah, that's my
I think they're the only 2 players that have a base salary over $5 million. I could be wrong about that. But
so is it just a bunch of dead cap? How do they have this much?
Because
how do they have this much?
$47 million in dead cap.
God, that's tough, man. That really is tough when you're getting up against it.
I think
know you always say don't.
There'll be an interesting discussion. I know, but there is an interesting discussion to be had about at what point is it too much.
Yeah, well, and also,
it's 20% of the cap now.
And obviously they're not going to now. I mean, you got Jalen and all that, but that's what 2020 did and allowed for the build up to 2022 was the idea. All right, we're going to just take a hit. We're going to just be like, this sucks. We're not going to be as good because of this. we're going to take the hit and then we can clear it up more moving forward.
Yeah.
Like, they're in that point where when you keep building up all this dead cap, like at a certain point, it's like it's too big a hit to be able to build a roster out, especially when you pay Jalen.
Slay's the one where it's, and we do this too, where it goes, if there's a surprise move, it's probably not a surprise anymore because we talked about it.
Yeah.
But, if there's a Schefter tweet out of nowhere being like, they're trading him to wherever, it wouldn't, I think there's probably like a 30% chance. Because you could take that money, you could sign Bradbury, you could then, there's things you can do with it. And I think as good as Slay is, look, he was voted team captain last year, all these things, it's a lot of money. And they have to do something with it. Slay's not going to pay. I would be floored. Not floored because it's the last year.
He's not going to pay on this.
I would be really surprised if he played at $17 million base salary next year. So something's happening, whether it's redoing his deal or trading him. Something's going to happen.
All right. You have your meeting in 1 minute, which you will be late for, but let's get to our final thoughts before we get out of here. Because you've got notes and I don't want to shirk the final thoughts.
Okay. You ready for this?
Elliot, just so everyone knows, he said he would be late for the meeting. He was okay with it, but the meeting starts now.
I know. Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
It's fine.
So I think Ted Lasso is a great show. I'm watching the second season again. I'm enjoying it. I'm watching it for the first time.
So the third one's coming out, like next week or something like that?
I gave it another chance. I didn't like this. I didn't like the first episode of the second season, so I gave up on it. But I've come back and I'm like,
I forgot. I gave you crap for that.
Yeah. So Ted Lasso to me is kind of close to a kid show. I think it has a lot of elements of a kid show. There are jokes that are adult driven, obviously, but there's kids movies that have, hints at adult. They just go a little far with it. But I think a lot of the humor is kid related. I think a lot of the plots and a lot of times are kid related. I think that the endings of episodes are very kid related. I think that it's somewhat of a kid show.
Well, so I know what you're saying. I think it is kid friendly. I think you could watch it with your kids, because it is,
Yeah, like Ted Lasso is like a kid character.
In a way, yes. But there are a lot.
Yeah, no, there are some things
the
you
whole,
know
like the divorce, his sadness, him being like the happy clown. Like there's a lot of stuff that is like deep thought type stuff, deep human psychology, emotion type stuff in that show that is simmering under the surface and that is talked about throughout. That is not kid friendly. So I get your point. It is a kid friendly show, but I wouldn't call it a kid show.
I think you're right. I think it's close to a kid show though. Okay. Like it's not far off from being. They would have to make like a few minor adjustments, and it could be like airing on Nick Jr.
Yes, sure.
Yeah,
let's go with it.
Okay,
it's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I have a longer one. I'll save that for Thursday just because you are up against it. So I'll just do it. Two quick ones. This is both quick. I just want to give a shout out to tnuts222 on Twitter, tweeting about basketball to me. Just a shout. If you've not seen basketball, movie's hilarious. Like
I think I've seen it.
It's the South Park guys.
I know what it is. Yeah.
Super underrated movie. Just want to get that out there. Baseball is hilarious. Like huge fan of baseball. I'm going to save my deep, longer thought. Here's my one thought. Can we stop with the whenever a team signs a guy, they got to do the graphic thing. Like I saw this graphic yesterday. All right, ready? Here it is. I took a picture of it. Like it's the Saints playmakers look out. And it's like Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, who hasn't really played football.
Yeah.
Like Chris Olave, nice player, and Taysom Hill. Like, enough.
Well, it's like
we don't need a graphic because Derek Carr's a Saint.
The table slamming.
Stop. Like enough with oh my God, look out for the Saints. Yeah, that's a fucking 8-win team right there. So great earmuffs.
It was like
belatedly.
Do you remember?
Like really, just enough of this. Every time it's got to be like, look at how great this team is. When it's like a guy you've heard of and then like 3 other dudes. Like enough.
So it reminds me of when the Eagles had like Marquise Goodwin, Deshaun Jackson, and it was like who's beating
Carson Wentz's playmakers.
No, and it was like who's beating this 4x4 in a race. It's like they're fast, but at the same time they're they I don't think. Maybe they caught one.
Catch her?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm with you. So enough. We don't have to do this. Every time someone goes somewhere, you don't need to do that. That's right. That's my point.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. I felt really good.
I mean, so here's I'll agree with you even further. I think it's okay for teams to do it. I think
teams is different. When ESPN that was an ESPN tweet. That was an ESPN. I agree with you. Teams can do it. Totally. It's like ESPN, Bleacher Report, whatever it is. Like, look at this. Who's going to stop these guys? Everybody. It's Derek Carr. A lot of teams are going to stop him.
I agree.
Thank you.
I agree with that.
All right. Go to your meeting. We'll be back Thursday. Parks, Pick Spot, and a lot more.
Yes.
Until then, he's Elliot James.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Elliot's got to go. Thank you.
A lot of good people in there.
Yes. We love everybody.
I do have to go, unfortunately. Maybe we'd hang another second.
Yeah. Blame Elliot. I would have stayed all day. I got nothing to do. I'm done. I'm hanging out.